This lecture is going to focus on developing new products within an organization and also sort of looking at the product life cycle. Now, before we begin, let's make sure we understand a firm can obtain a new product in two ways. One is through acquisition. That's buying a whole company or a patent or licensing to produce somebody else's product. The other is through the firm's own new product development efforts. New products are original products or product improvements or modifications and a new brand that a firm develops through its own R&D efforts. To create successful new products, a company must understand its consumers, markets, competitors, and develop products that deliver superior value to the customers. So let's look at this in a little bit more depth. What you see on the screen right now is a new product development process. The one that we present here in this lecture is 8 major steps. Understand that some companies may combine some of these, some companies may expand some of these. These are not all done in separate departments, so each company will look at this slightly differently. But for you as a marketing student, it's good to understand all the different steps, no matter what a company basically calls them. So a new product develops with idea generation. Now, this is a systematic search for new products. Major sources of new project ideas include internal sources and external sources. Beyond the internal R&D process, a company can pick the brains of its own people. Many companies develop successful internal social networks and entrepreneurial programs that encourage employees to develop new product classes. Companies can also obtain good new product ideas from any number of sources. We might want to look at what distributors and suppliers, competitors, even the customers themselves. You should never ignore external sources. Numerous companies now are developing even crowdsourcing or open innovation new concept ideas. Crowdsourcing invites a broad community of people, including customers, independent researchers, and even the public at large, into the innovation process. Where the purpose of idea generation is to create a large number of ideas, the purpose of idea screening is to basically reduce that number. Many companies require that their executives write up a new product idea in a standard format that can be reviewed by a new product committee. The write-up describes basically the product, value proposition, the target market, and the competition. It also should estimate things like the market size, product price, development time, manufacturing costs, and importantly, the rate of return. Rate of return is basically based on how much you invest, what is going to be your percentage of profit of return basically on that investment. Committees will then evaluate the idea against a set of general criteria. There is one that's called real win worth, or shortened to RWW. This refers to a new product screening framework that's popularly used, but it asks 3 basic questions. First, is it real? Is there really a need and desire for the product, and will customers even buy it? Is there a clear product concept, and will such product basically satisfy the market? Second, can we win? Does the product offer justifiable competitive advantage? Does the company have the resources to make such a product successful? Finally, is it worth doing? Does the product fit the company's overall growth strength? Does it offer significant profit potential? Now, companies should be able to answer yes to all 3 RWW questions before developing any new product any further. An attractive idea must then be developed into a product concept. It's important to distinguish between a product idea, a product concept, and a product image. A product idea is the idea for a possible product that a company can see itself offering in the marketplace. A product concept is a detailed version of the idea stated in basically meaningful customer terms. A product image is the way that consumers will perceive the actual or potential product. Marketers also develop current products into alternative product concepts by finding out how attractive each concept is to the customers and then choosing the best one. This is also done with new product concept. They take the parts of the new product that are worth keeping according to customers and basically ditch the rest. Concept testing calls for testing new products with a group of targeted customers. The concept may be presented to customers symbolically or physically. Many firms routinely test new product concepts with consumers before attempting to turn them into actual new products. For some concept tests, a word or a picture or description may be sufficient. More concrete and physical presentation of a product, though, will increase the reliability of a concept test. After being exposed to the concept, customers are generally asked to react to it by answering some questions. The answers will basically allow the company to decide which concepts have the strongest appeal and which ones may need to go back to the drawing board. One example that's very often done is testing kids' toys. Generally, we have to have a realistic or prototype for the kids to play with. Kid toy production is just going to be a hit and miss in a way. We need to get the input from the kids to understand if there's anything that's going to be worth moving forward. Now, most of the time, there are companies that specialize in concept testing for other organizations. It is a very interesting area of marketing if you're considering going into marketing. Market strategy development then involves designing an initial marketing strategy for introducing this new product into the market. The market strategy statement consists of three parts. It describes the target market and planned value proposition and the company goals for the first few years. The second part of the marketing strategy statement outlines the product's plan as far as price, distribution, marketing budget for the first year. And the third part describes the planned long-run sales and profit goals and basically the marketing mix strategy. Most often at the same time as the marketing strategy development is going on, there's also a business analysis. So once management has decided on the product concept and the marketing strategy, it can evaluate the business attractiveness of the proposal. A business analysis basically reviews the sales, the costs, and the profit projected of the new product to find out if they'll satisfy the company's objectives. If the projected satisfies the company's objective, then basically the product can move on. If the product concept passes the business test, it moves into product development. And this refers to the development of a product concept into a physical product to ensure that the product idea can be turned into a workable marketing offering. R&D department will develop and test one or more physical versions of the product test. R&D hopes to design a prototype that will satisfy and excite customers that can be produced quickly and at a budgeted cost. The next step is test marketing. This is a stage at which products and the process of the marketing program are introduced into a realistic marketing setting. Test marketing gives marketing executives with a product that they can see before they go into full expense and full production. It lets the company test the product and the entire marketing program, targeting and positioning, advertising, distribution, pricing, branding, budget levels. However, test marketing costs can be very high, and tests take time that may allow market opportunities to slip by or competitors to gain advantages. It's always a gamble on whether or not to do a test market, but many companies find that the expense of the test market is worth not bringing a major brand to the marketplace and finding that it fails. If all of this is worked out, then we have commercialization, which refers to introducing a new product into the market. If a company goes ahead with commercialization, basically they're going to be facing some high costs because we're going to have the cost of production, but no cost of sales yet. A company launching a new product must first decide on basically the introduction timing. If a new product will eat into the sales of other company products, the introduction may be delayed. If the product can be improved further or if the economy is down, the company may wait until the following year to launch it. However, if the competitors are ready to introduce their own competing products, the company may push to introduce a new product sooner. A company must also decide where to launch the new product. Should they launch in a single location, in a region, across the country, or maybe even internationally? Some companies may quickly introduce a new product to full national marketing if they feel their competitors are about to do the same thing. Companies with international distribution systems may take new products through a very swift global rollout. So the figure that you're seeing here is sort of a typical product life cycle. Basically, if we think about it, our product is coming out of the product development stage, but that is sort of the beginning of its life cycle. And what we also see is the profit and the sales over its lifetime. Now, there will be some people who will argue that there are really only four basically stages because you can't consider it a part of the product life cycle if it isn't out there to the public because there's so many products that don't make it past the product development stage. But let's assume that our product has made it past the product development stage and that we're now out in the marketplace. So let's look a little bit more closely at how some of these things interact with the actual stages, you might want to say. And how do we know what stage we're in? Well, first of all, what we're really looking for is this mark right there, where basically it's introduced for sale to the general public. Now, who are going to be the first people coming out there? Well, those are going to be your innovators. Your innovators are going to be right there at the front. They may have even been able to get some of it in R&D because you've allowed a few people to have it. Somewhere around here, we're going to begin to see our early adopters jump in. Now, we want those early adopters in there. Remember, they tend to be opinion leaders. They tend to be the people who people will look to. Now, they don't look to the innovators because, as we've talked about before, is that person who's a computer enthusiast who's got every little piece of tech, and you're not going to be the person who wants every little piece of tech, but you're going to look at that person who really is using computers the way that you would like to use them, and you're going to probably want to adopt some of the products that they have. Now, our sales are going to be pretty low because, after all, it's new to the market and people are still getting accustomed to it. But we probably also have very few competitors at this point. However, let me qualify this. We are making the assumption that this is a new product out there. If you are coming in once a product is already established, then yeah, your competitors may be many. But if we're assuming that we're doing a new product out there, then we don't have very many. We may even have no competitors yet. Now, how do we know we're in the growth phase? Well, we're looking for this point right here, the point in which our profits basically move above the negative line. Once our profits move above the negative line, then we know we are in the growth phase of the next step. And the big important thing here is that we see this very steep incline of sales. That steep incline of sales is really showing us that the early majority has started to purchase. So we're into sort of this group, a large group of people who are beginning to purchase the product. Moreover, what's really nice is that we're beginning to see some profit at this point. In fact, we're going to see that one of the things we know that helps us understand that we are gone from the growth phase to basically the maturity phase is this point right here where we're basically pretty stable. We're seeing that sales have really reached sort of profitability has really reached sort of a high level for us. But as far as sales are concerned, if we look up here, which is what's really important, we still have more sales growth to grow. So we still can move up. Now, as far as time frames are concerned, because I know sometimes people ask me about that, how long is each one of these stages? Well, that would depend on the product and the product that's being sold. I mean, Kinko Man has been around for over 400 years. And some would say that Kinko Man is still in a semi-growth phase because if you were only looking at Kinko Man being within Japan, then yeah, it may be in a maturity phase for it. But Kinko Man has really reached out across the world, and so it's still growing. So that will really depend per product as far as that's concerned. But once we're in the maturity stage, a couple of things that we're looking at is that we're going to hit our peak sales right about here. It's always hard to understand where our peak sales are. Generally, in order to understand peak sales, we have to look to the past. We don't always know when we're in it at the moment. But what is nice is that we are seeing good profits here in the beginning. But notice toward the end, our profits are beginning to slide a little bit. Why are the profits sliding? Well, basically, if you look at it, our actual sales are sliding. So, of course, if we're not selling as much, we're not making as much profit. But the good news is that at this time, we're basically looking at some of our lowest costs per customer. So while our profits may be going down because our sales are going down, the actual profit per sale is still going to be pretty high. So that's the reason that we see the decline right here, because that decline is matching this decline right here. Now, when we get into basically the decline phase, we're talking about that we're starting to see sales really slipping off. And it's usually, as you can see, this pretty dramatic fashion, this direction. Why might something go into decline? Well, it again depends on the field and it depends on what we're talking about. For technology, there could be a new technology that comes out there. But there are still sales because basically in the decline phase, we're going to have the laggers, the people who haven't adopted until the end, or maybe they really have to, or they're, I better get it now because it's disappearing type of thing. So our laggers are going to be our primary purchasers at this point. The thing with this is that this is a model, meaning is that products are all going to have slightly different projections as we look at this. And you'd be doing this per product also, because you have a product doesn't mean that that product is all going to be the same. So if we're looking at something like Procter and Gamble, who's got a gazillion different soaps, they're going to be watching these as they move through every soap, because each soap would have its own basic lines as far as sales and profitability are concerned. And so when they're introducing a new version of Dial soap, so I was just looking at it and they now have the lavender Dial soap, they're going to be watching to see where this occurs. And that brings us to some interesting things when we talk about this curve. So when we talk about this curve, some interesting things can occur because style, fashion, fads, they all basically give a unique type of curve. So it can be applied to all these different scenarios. So a style is basically somewhat of a distinctive note of expression. For example, styles appear in homes, in clothing, in art. A style may last for generations and pass out of vogue, and then it may come back. A style basically has a cycle, and it shows over several periods of renewed interest. Now, when it comes to fashion, a current acceptable or popular style in a given field, for example, a more formal business attire took the corporate dress of the 1980s and 90s and gave way to sort of that business casual look that we have of the 2000s and 2010s. You know, fashions tend to grow slowly, remain popular for a while, and then they tend to decline. And then there are the fads. They're temporary periods of unusually high sales driven by consumer enthusiasm and immediate product or brand popularity. A fad may be part of an otherwise normal life cycle, or a fad may comprise a brand's product entire life cycle. Pet rocks or fidget spinners may be great examples of both of these. And finally, there are some considerations when we're talking about new products. You know, marketers should carefully consider public policy issues and regulations regarding acquiring or dropping products, you know, patent protections, product quality and safety, and product awareness. You know, regarding new products, the government may prevent companies from adding new products through acquisition if it feels like it's going to threaten or lessen competition in the United States. Companies may also obey U.S. patent laws when developing new products. Now, a company can't make its product illegally similar to another product to establish a product. Manufacturers must comply with specific laws regarding the product quality and the safety. For example, various acts provide for inspection of sanitary conditions in meat and poultry processing industry. You know, safety legislation has been passed to regulate fabrics and chemical substances, automobiles, drugs, poisons. If consumers have been injured by a product with a defective design, they can sue the manufacturer or the dealers. Some companies now appoint product stewards whose job is to protect customers from harm and the company from liability by proactively ferreting out potential product problems. All of these need to really be considered when we begin to look at the adoption of new products. Well, as some of you might hear, the lawn people are outside, so I think that's the end of this lecture. For those of you who are going into marketing, you're going to find that this lecture is basically an overview and introduction, and you'll be going into rather more detail in all of these and other courses. For those of you who are focusing more on other aspects of business, this is an important understanding of it because no matter what we do for business, there's always going to be products and new products for you to look at.